What's up, everybody? It's the Prime Sports Crew here with episode 8. Finally joining us is Blake. He just got back from Vegas. It was his birthday this past weekend, so happy belated birthday to Blake. Joining us is also Pete and Tony. And it was another crazy week of football. Well, so that being said, we'll start with some of the biggest news of the week from this past weekend, from these past games. The first notable one is the Deebo Samuel injury. Blake, is there any concern with that injury of how much of an impact it'll make on the 49ers? Or do you think this team is still relatively going to play the exact same way they've been playing the last few weeks?
So it definitely going to hurt a little bit. I do think it is a good thing that it wasn't a severe injury with only being an MCL sprain. So I definitely think they escaped a big catastrophe in that. With it, the way it looked on the field, it looked really bad. Seeing him cry on the sidelines, I thought he was honestly done for the year as soon as I saw him getting carted off. But they were able to avoid that. And good news is he should be back probably around week 17. Be back right before playoffs start. So I don't think this affects them making the playoffs. It might affect them maybe 1 or 2 seeds up or down. But the good thing is he's coming back, and as long as he can be 95% of what he is in the regular season, they're definitely going to be able to make a playoff push.
Yeah, the first time Deebo was out for a few weeks earlier this season, they seemed to still have success. And Brandon Ayuk played really well in his absence, so it'll be interesting to see how he steps up while Deebo's gone. They've been playing really good the past few weeks. Blake, do you think they're the best team in the NFC? And if not, what do they have to do to be the best team in the NFC?
They're definitely not the best team in the NFC. You kind of have to give that to the Eagles on the way they've been playing consistently throughout the whole season. What they need to do as far as 49ers to be number one in the NFC is honestly just keep doing what they're doing. As long as Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, can play the way he's been playing these last 2 games, I would definitely put them in a big time argument with being top team in the NFC.
Yeah, they're obviously playing really, really well, and even with the Jimmy G injury, obviously it hasn't made too much of an impact. Purdy's been playing just as well, if not even better, in some people's eyes. And I actually think that, kind of want to bring that up a little bit more. We'll see what Tony or P have to say about that. Do you think that pretty much means Garoppolo's gone after this season and they're going with Purdy and Lance? Or do you think they try and keep Garoppolo? Because at this point, if he can continues playing the way he has been, you're going to keep Garoppolo even though he's going to cost you, what, $20 million more?
Yeah, I don't see them keeping Garoppolo, especially if Purdy can play the rest of the season out, the regular season out, the way he's been playing. There's no reason to keep Garoppolo, especially if you still, as a team, has the mindset of moving forward with Trey Lance. You can have Brock Purdy as the backup and feel pretty confident if something does happen to Lance again, Purdy would be able to come in, step up, and do exactly what he's doing right now.
Yeah, Pete, Tony, do you guys think that means Garoppolo's time is done in San Francisco?
Yeah, bro, I was going to pretty much say this, almost the same thing as Blake. I think if Purdy can continue to play good football the rest of the season, not only will it save them money, but Garoppolo is kind of like the backup plan in case Trey Lance didn't pan out or if Trey Lance got injured. So now that they know that Purdy can play the way he's playing, as long as they don't lose too many weapons and their defense is still solid next year, and they know that if Trey Lance doesn't pan out or if he does get injured again, Purdy can come in and take that role over. Like you said, it'll save them a lot of money to let Jimmy G go somewhere.
Yeah, Tony, what do you think about maybe Jimmy G going to a team like the Jets or the Giants? You know, similar built to the 49ers. Do you think that'd be a good destination for him in New York with either of those two teams?
Yeah, I do think that it would be a good destination for him. I mean, both those teams have been winning games this year, mostly large in part to their defense. And Jimmy Garoppolo plays best with a good defense behind him. I also was going to touch on it too. It's funny that you bring it up. He's probably going to be looking for a more long-term contract this offseason. He took this short one with the 49ers to kind of see what happens. And now he's got to be looking at a juicy quarterback market right now. Lots of teams looking to improve at that position this offseason. And we got to keep in mind that some veteran, older quarterback, I don't know, could be on the move next year. Could he be moving to maybe the Packers? They have a good team too. You put Jimmy Garoppolo on any three of those teams, and I think they're going to be contending for a playoff spot in the NFC next year. Or the AFC with the Jets.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of good teams. Obviously, like you said, a lot of teams looking to upgrade at the quarterback position because I think everybody's just looking for a spark. Speaking of a spark, Pete, there's been a couple talks about wide receivers. Obviously, everybody's still waiting on Odell Beckham Jr. to decide where he wants to go, but it's not looking like we won't see. It's looking like we're not going to see him till playoffs, maybe the last week of the season. But some more notable news as far as that goes is Cole Beasley signed with the Bills, and T.Y. Hilton obviously signed with your Dallas Cowboys. Talk to us a little bit about those two signings.
Yeah, bro. I think overall, I think both teams just don't like the way OBJ is handling the situation, or maybe his knee's worse than he's saying it is. So I know Jerry Jones told him that the clock was ticking. He didn't sign a deal with us, so we went and got T.Y. Hilton because he said he needs upwards of 5 more weeks of rehab. So I'm sure the Bills aren't as vocal as the Cowboys, but they felt the same way. They want a little bit of veteran receiver help now in case somebody goes down. And we know there's not a lot of receivers out there right now to go sign off the street. So I think Cole Beasley, he's just there for veterans, have a veteran receiver in the locker room and a little bit of depth. I don't think he's going to see the field too much, not with the way the whole fucking offense has been playing recently. I mean, they don't really need the help. But when it comes to the Cowboys, they need the help at receiver. James Washington came off the injury and he didn't do shit. He got his ass clocked, dropped the ball, didn't really go back in the game. So, but I mean, I don't really feel any type of way about the T.Y. Hilton signing. I understand he's a veteran wide receiver. He's been a pretty injury-prone wide receiver the last couple of years. They said he's the healthiest he's been. He's in shape, and he's going to play upwards of 35 snaps this week. So we'll see where that goes. But I think overall the situation is that OBJ is just not ready to play, and some teams are looking for some help right now.
Yeah. Tony, Kyler Murray. We've talked a lot about him this season. A lot of people have talked about him this offseason. So what do we make of this injury? Where does that leave the Cardinals? And what do you think the Cardinals need to do for Kyler Murray to succeed once he's ready to come back?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that this is a devastating injury for football and for the Cardinals more specifically. As much trash as we talked about Kyler Murray, as much as people made jokes or memes, at the end of the day, football's more entertaining with him in it. So I think you're going to look at the NFC West. If you're a fan of just watching those teams, I mean, 2 of those teams are both now without their starting quarterback. It kind of just makes the division less interesting as a whole as we move here towards playoffs. So for the Cardinals, it essentially ends their season, barring any miraculous backup quarterback play. I know we've seen our fair share of that this year with other teams. But, I don't think they're going to be doing a whole bunch now without Kyler. They were already kind of trending in the wrong direction this season, already a little bit of a disappointment. So I think that what they need to do moving forward with Kyler is get him a new head coach and spend some money on an offensive line for him, so many times we see him scrambling around in the backfield, getting chased by, DNs and linebackers, forced to make plays happen. I think they thought that they could just throw more wide receivers at Kyler and they'd do better, but now he has a bunch of wide receivers on the depth chart that he isn't getting the ball to, and he doesn't have the offensive line help to, for them to sustain these drives with these long passing plays that they're drawing up. So I don't know. They got a lot of work to do this offseason. They just signed Kyler Murray to this big extension, this big contract. There's no way they're going to trade him. There's no way they're going to move off him. They have to get him some pieces, and I think that starts with the O-line. Maybe that helps open up the run game for them too, because that's been hit or miss for the last couple of seasons with them.
Do you guys think this can open up a door for comeback player of the year next year for him? You think he's capable of something like that?
I do. He's still really young, and an ACL injury this year or this early on in your career isn't as bad as it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. I think now with modern, medical technology and, the kind of physical training these players can do, I think it's very likely. I'm sure when the odds come out on the season awards next year, Kyler Murray's going to have the best odds, going into it. So I think it could be his to lose.
Yeah, I definitely think Kyler's obviously been struggling since he signed that contract this past offseason, and it just hasn't worked out for him this year. So it kind of sucks to see him go out with an ACL injury because you never want to see, Tony, like you said, players that make football a lot more fun to watch. Right before we end this segment, I did want to bring up the passing of head coach Mike Leach. As a lot of people know, Mike Leach, he's a very old school, hard-nosed coach. He loved the trenches, loved the O-line and D-line battles. He was just one of those coaches that was just always around football and was always had a lot to say about the players and how to play the game, and just had a lot of respect for the way football should be played. And, he had his success at Mississippi State and everything, and he had an impact on a lot of pro players that are in the NFL today. So just wanted to give a quick shout out to Mike Leach and hope that his family and his friends are doing okay. And, we want to thank him for what he did for football. So with that being said, we're going to end this segment, and then we'll be back with our game recaps and our previews.
Goff throws. Wow. Panay Sewell, the right tackle, makes the catch.
Welcome back, everybody. We're going to get started with our game recaps from the games this past weekend. Tony, go ahead and get us started with your Vikings, who lost against the Lions, the Red Hot Lions. The Vikings were underdogs, which had a lot of people surprised, had a lot of people talking. You guys had 10 wins, Lions have 5. It seemed like a lot of people were disrespecting the Vikings. And for some reason, Vegas got it right. And the Lions come out here and they continue the winning streak to 5 games now, I think?
I know 5 out of the last 6 for sure.
Yeah, they're 5-1 right now.
So, Tony, talk to us a little bit about what went wrong in that game and what was up with the pass defense that seems to be the Achilles heel of this Vikings team.
I'll tell you what happened, bro. The games are rigged. The players were paid to not play defense. Vegas had to make its money back. They had some bad beats. All jokes aside, the Vikings passing defense without Harrison Smith was bad. They missed him so bad, and they've had injuries in their secondary. They've been bad in the secondary all year, except for 3rd and 4th down when a quarterback throws to Patrick Peterson, because he gives up one of the best quarterback ratings in those situations. But aside from that one specific situation, they're cheeks right now. and we just couldn't stop them on drives.
Yeah.
We could string together 2 stops in a row, 3 stops in a row, but we couldn't quite get a 4th one. It seemed like it was just hard to watch. They just had a hard time defending the middle, the short, the intermediate, over the top, you name it. Jared Goff was getting a ball there. I think that this isn't the worst thing in the world, though, as far as the Vikings situation is concerned. You're going to lose games to teams that you should have beat in any season. It's bound to happen. So the Vikings still win the division with a win now and a loss for the Lions, I believe. But
Yeah.
Y'all have to lose out and the Lions have to win out, right?
yeah, I'm
For the
pretty
Lions
sure.
to win it, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not super worried about
ain't
that
happening.
situation happening. But I am worried about the defense. Hopefully they can get healthy. Just some of their guys back, mainly Harrison Smith. But there were some good things.
Let me ask you this. Would you rather face the Lions, the Seahawks, or the Giants or Commanders in the playoffs?
The
you
Giants.
too.
Me?
Yeah. Or what team
Yeah,
would
I
you
mean-
least want to face?
Least
In
want to
the whole
face
playoffs? Or out of
in
them?
those 4 teams.
No, out of those other wild card spots.
I wouldn't want to face the Lions. Their offense just has too many weapons, bro.
Yeah.
And they got a top 10 defense in the league since week 6. So, I mean, I'd choose to go against the other teams over them,
I
especially
agree.
because 2 of them are divisional opponents, and you know how them games get every time. Like, it could be the best team and the worst team in the league. You go against a divisional opponent or a rival opponent.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a close game most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Lions are playing really good, and I agree. I think they're probably the best team out of those four other wild card teams that are fighting for
They're
those
probably
last
the
2
best
spots.
team in the league that are not in the playoffs currently.
Yeah, I would agree. So, I mean, Tony, I agree with you as well that it doesn't mean as much in the sense of you guys are still going to win the division, but I think it's one of those like
It's one of those games
we
the
needed a
haters are
moral
going to point
victory
to.
here. Exactly. And
Definitely
those
going to
games
point to it.
yeah,
It's one of those
because
games the haters are going to point to. But
And
I will say Justin Jefferson did break the franchise record for receiving yards that game.
Yeah.
It's not like this is some sort of blowout. Honestly, neither team's defense could really stop the offense super consistently. If the Vikings made
Yeah.
1 or 2 less mistakes on offense, they could be right in the thick of this game instead of having to, get a stop on 3rd and 9 and letting Penei Sewell get the first down, God forbid you have to rely
that
on
was
your
a hell
team
of
to
a
do
play
that.
call.
But
It was an athletic play by him too.
it was.
Also on that play, like he came full speed from the slot, and then you see Daniil Hunter. He hesitated. He was gonna hit him. At the same time, he backed up and let Penei Sewell just run by. That's a scary man to come full speed from the slot in motion.
Running right at you.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe he could have
But
gotten
yeah.
more if he would have just tried to go for a stiff arm or something.
That motherfucker would have coughed that shit right up.
Yeah, as soon as he got the ball, he was just looking for the first down. He's like, "Let me just get this
And-
first, and I'm going down."
And I don't know if y'all seen Dan Campbell's interview. He said he made it super, super like obvious to Goff. He really pushed the fucking tone, telling him, "Make sure you go down inbounds. Don't fucking run out of bounds." So it was a good play, bro.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not a crazy loss. It's a loss to a really good team. So it's not like you lost to some fucking shitty team that isn't good and you guys are now looking questionable. I think your pass defense is definitely suspect, but you lost to a good team, but you still have the division lead. you're still most likely going to win your division. So I think it's just important to string a couple wins together here to end the season and go into the playoffs strong.
And I don't think you can say the Lions are in the "we fucking suck" club right now, Tony.
Nah, that's
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Pete, speaking of "we fucking suck" club, your Cowboys face the last ranked Texans team that we've had on our power rankings pretty much all season. Was this a necessary gritty win that you guys needed? One of these closed games that you really kind of have to battle out? And do you think your offense is best ran behind Zeke and Pollard?
Well, definitely, bro. Definitely Zeke and Pollard are the offense right now. Dak has thrown 2 interceptions in multiple games since coming off his injury. Yeah. I understand he's being a little more aggressive, which I don't really mind it. A lot of them are tip balls where the receivers aren't catching them. He's throwing it a little bit too hard for him coming across the middle, trying to beat a little bit of coverage, fit it in a tight window. But kind of like Tony said, you're gonna lose to teams in the NFL that you're supposed to beat sometimes. Luckily, we came out and we did win this game. I mean, coming from a Cowboys fan, it was a good game to watch, but it stressed you out the whole time because, I mean, it was back and forth. I mean, both teams were moving the ball. Like I said, like talking to y'all the other day, them alternating their quarterbacks really fucked with our defense and our pass rush. I don't think they were expecting that. We couldn't get home to them. But at the end of the day, bro, we came out there and we played our best football when it mattered. That's a fucking game that I've seen the Cowboys lose for the past decade. They just get into one of them fucking slumps and they can't do shit. They don't do anything the whole game. I mean, and they end up losing it. Something happens at the end, an interception or a fumble, or they throw the ball away and they lose the game. So from my perspective, I don't really say it was necessarily one of them things that they needed. But at the same time, they were kind of believing the hype on themselves after some big blowout wins. So I think it kind of brought them back to earth. They took a team lightly, especially another team in Texas, bro. I mean, they're not in our division. But when we play the Texans, it's rough. It's close games because it's a Texas rivalry. So overall, I mean, y'all probably seen the game. Y'all watched the game. It wasn't pretty at all. But, I mean, I'm glad we came out with the win overall.
Yeah, I think it's important to just stack wins. And like you said, you're trying to get the best seed possible, which is that 5 seed. And if you can somehow sneak winning the division, I think it's important to win these games. It doesn't matter how pretty they are or not.
And I know the Texans' record, bro. I mean, I know they're most people's worst ranked team in the league, but we gotta not putting it past them. I mean, they are an NFL team, and they had a close game with us. They had a close game with the Eagles. They had a close game with the Titans. They had a close game with the Chargers. They had a close game with the Bears, the Broncos. They tied the Colts. They beat the Jags. I mean, I know they're the worst team in the NFL, but it's not like they're just. I mean, we should have went out there and beat them. We should have went out there and beat them handedly, but I can't put it past them because their defense came to play, their offense came to play. I mean, there's players that haven't fucking made a play in 6 seasons that are out there fucking mossing people up on our team. People just come to fucking play when they play the Cowboys. But like I said, I mean, I'm just glad we came out with the fucking win, bro. I mean, I don't know if I'd have been able to handle an L.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, at the end of the day, a win is a win. We all thought that you guys would blow the Texans out, and we were all wrong there.
We had a lot of injuries too, man. I mean, I know every team battles with it, but we lost our right tackle. I mean, we lost our a starting safety coming into the game. He did end up playing in the game, but he was hurt. So there's a lot of injuries all around. I mean, you've seen we lost Hankins. He's out for a few weeks, which is a big hit to our pass rush. Our receivers weren't playing. James Washington was supposed to be more explosive. They said he was ready. He didn't look ready to me. He was out there playing pretty slow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're dealing with a lot of things right now. Kellen Moore didn't run any pre-snap motion like he's done the whole season. So Dak wasn't really changing the plays too much. They were just sticking with what the play call was. Like I said, they took that team lightly, and they almost fucking lost for it. But that last drive, I will say, we put Jason Peters at right tackle, which he hasn't played right tackle since his fucking rookie season in what I think it said 2006, 2008, something like that. Yeah. He's played 5 snaps since then at right tackle. He came in, he killed it. He played a great fucking drive. I mean, Dak was 96 of the 98 yards. Only 2 yards he didn't get was a Z touchdown. So they came out and they had a great game-winning drive when it mattered. So that made me feel a little bit better about the game.
Yeah. You mentioned the 98-yard touchdown drive. As a Raider fan, I feel like I'm a little familiar with 98-yard touchdown drives, and I think that's a perfect way.
All that shit that
It's a perfect way to transition into the Raiders recap.
Wait, time out. Barbecue chicken is going to be the hashtag of this segment right here.
The Vegas Raiders.
He said 3-game win streak.
Now what?
Where's the chef hat? Where's the chef hat? I need the chef hat. Really good baker out there.
Oh, yes, I was not the baker this past week in the Raiders game. Baker Mayfield was. Yeah, as we all know, I was talking a lot of shit after last week's win against the Chargers. Baker gets waived by the Panthers, and the Rams claim him on, what was it, Tuesday, I believe? Or on Monday. He gets to LA on Tuesday. He's there for 10 minutes, and
Beats the Raiders.
Looking at the game, very similar to kind of how you were saying to Pete. I had mentioned the same thing to one of my friends, Joni, who was watching the game with me. It looked like the Raiders weren't even trying. I thought it kind of looked like they thought they had this game in the bag already. It wasn't going to require much effort, and rightly so. I mean, for pretty much 40 minutes of the game, the Raiders did dominate that game. Although they didn't play well, they did dominate the whole game. And then, obviously, Baker Mayfield comes in on the second drive, and since that point, he actually showed some flashes. The Rams offense was moving the ball, and they weren't really scoring. But then the fourth quarter comes out, and it was like he's been there for 2 seasons already. I mean, he was hitting all kinds of receivers all over the field, and he's successful in the 98-yard touchdown drive that wins the game with who was it, Vance Jefferson.
Van Jefferson.
Van Jefferson beat our undrafted rookie Sam Webb playing press coverage for some reason, and gets beat for the touchdown. And there's a lot of blame during this game. The coaching was poor. Derek Carr played poor. Devontae Adams had 3 catches, and the defense continues to get beat in the middle of the field, and it's just another collapse stemming from a lot of ugly losses this season. But let me ask you guys this, because John Wolford was just said to be out for this next week's game for the Rams, so Baker basically has the rest of the season. Do you guys think Baker can turn his career around, especially with showing what he did on those last 2 drives against the Raiders?
100%. I think he can turn it around. And especially being on a Los Angeles Rams team, which even though they're not good, they get a lot of media coverage always because they're in Los Angeles. I think there's a good chance he turns it around and ends up being kind of like this Geno Smith of next year, where Geno Smith came in, wasn't expected to be successful at all, and arguably he's comeback player of the year right now. I think Baker Mayfield's going to find a team where he's going to be able to start off the bat, and I definitely think him healthy, he's I would say right in the middle of the pack, could be a middle pack starting quarterback in this league.
Tony, how do you feel about Baker?
That was a perfect assessment. Honestly, I couldn't agree with Blake anymore. I think that, like I said earlier, there's a big, juicy quarterback market coming this offseason. I think a lot of players are going to take chances and do some movement and try and bet on themselves. Why not Baker too? I mean, I will say one thing to his advantage as well, besides the LA media market, is the LA coaching staff. I think that Sean McVay was the head coach that Baker needed his whole career. Honestly, someone
100%.
that's young enough to be a little bit more relatable to Baker, because he has like this really young Gen Z mindset. You can tell just by the way he portrays himself and the kind of jokes he makes, the things he says to the media. He has a younger personality, a younger mentality. And I think Sean McVay, one of the advantages he has is he's so young, he's able to relate with his players a little bit more, get them to buy in a little bit more, on top of being a good signal caller, a good scheme maker, has had the Rams playing good in shitty situations, and he won them a Super Bowl too. So I think it's the best situation possible for Baker, especially after a big game win. People thought that game was going to be over. Now he gets this big story. He can build momentum, got a good coach with him, and he could be looking at signing maybe a 2-year deal, 3-year deal with a team that needs a quarterback right now. It could even be the Rams, depending on how they feel about Matthew Stafford, his injury history, and his age. Maybe, if Stafford doesn't have it next year, you at least have Baker there to compete with him for a job, depending on how bad he is after injury and another year on him. We'll see, but there's lots of teams looking for quarterbacks, and he should and could be starting on one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely talking a lot of shit about him. I called him trash. I still think he's trash, but I do think he has potential. So I guess I can't say shit after he beat my team. So it is what it is. That being said, I don't think the Raiders' loss is as crazy of a thing as a lot of people are making it to seem. Like I said, we dominated for the majority of that game. I think you need losses like that sometimes to really start to open up your eyes. And we had just been riding that 3-game win streak that we got a little complacent, and it tends to happen. But Blake, the Ravens, who are also dealing with some quarterback injuries, had Tyler Huntley start this game against the Steelers, a divisional game. You also got J.K. Dobbins back, and he sparked your guys' run game to a win against the Steelers team that you guys needed to keep that division lead. Tell us a little bit about your guys' game. And I know Huntley got a little injured. Are we expecting him to play next weekend, or who can we expect to play quarterback for you guys?
I mean, man, it felt good to get a lot of people back from injury. We had Ronnie Stanley, J.K. Dobbins come back, Marcus Williams came back, had an interception, but we can't escape the injury bug. In third quarter, Tyler Huntley goes down with a concussion, and I was a little scared. I'm not going to lie. I was confident going into that game. Fourth quarter comes around, no Tyler Huntley, and the Steelers start making that comeback. I was really, really worried, but J.K. Dobbins, that offensive line, Gus Edwards, they started getting that run game going, and they couldn't be stopped, knocking down the clock in the fourth quarter. It felt great. It was an ugly win. Like the last 5 wins Ravens have had have all been ugly, but we're winning. That's the main thing. We're coming out on top on these ugly games, and I think that says something to for the coaching staff, for the players, and the mentality they have. But one thing I do want to point out big time is the defense, and honestly, we need to pay Roquan Smith. Roquan Smith, since coming here, we're the number 2 defense in the league. It's been insane. And that defense showed up again against the Steelers with 3 interceptions.
Yeah, well, you guys were struggling, to start the season, and when that trade was made, we all kind of said how he was a perfect fit for you guys. He was the prototypical Ravens linebacker. So I think if you guys can somehow make it work to where you guys can keep Roquan Smith, like you said, I think it's a perfect match, and he's only done nothing but improve your guys' defense since you guys got him. And like you said, you guys are starting to get a little healthier, and you're winning. Despite all the injuries, you're winning, and that's the most important thing, especially when you have a team like the Bengals right on your guys' tail, trying to capture that lead. What do you think you guys need to do to get the passing game going a little bit more? Because at this point, I think everyone can pretty confidently say they're scared of your guys' run game and defense. How can you guys get the passing game going a little bit more?
Honestly, I think it's going to start with the run game still. To be honest, the run game, besides this last game against the Steelers, it hasn't been that big. Kenyon Drake and Justice Hill have been solid enough. They haven't been splashy, whereas big threat on the run game. It's been Lamar Jackson who's been the big threat. So I think getting J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards going opens up the pass game a lot more, especially for those deep balls that we've been lacking big time this year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it made a big difference getting players like Dobbins and Stanley back, like you said, Marcus Williams, and you came out with you said, a big win, especially when it looked like the Steelers were starting to, make a comeback there. So that was good for you guys to get that kind of a win.
I also want to give a shout out for Demarcus Robinson at receiver. Like, a lot of teams didn't really believe in him. I didn't really believe that he was going to be a big factor, but he's proving to be our number 1 receiver in and out every week. Yeah, he only had 5 receptions, 52 yards, but in our offense, that's like a 10 reception, 120-yard game.
Yeah.
So it's huge. It's huge getting those 5 receptions at the receiving position for the Ravens.
Yeah. We talk a lot about how the Ravens have a lack of weapons, but at the end of the day, you guys are winning. So I guess you can't complain in that area. That being said, I think we're going to take another quick break, and then we'll jump back in with our game preview. So we'll be back in a second.
Mayfield to the end zone to Jefferson. Is that possible? Touchdown.
Welcome back, everybody. Here to jump into our game previews for this upcoming week. Tony, get us started with the Vikings, who are facing the Colts. Obviously, you guys are coming off that loss against the Lions. What do you guys need to do to beat the Colts, and how do you stop Jonathan Taylor and a Colts team that seems to be playing slightly better under Jeff Saturday?
Yeah, we just need to play fundamentally better on the defensive side of things right now. We need to get the pass rush home. We need to play tighter on receivers. We can't just be sitting in soft zones all time and hope that Matt Ryan's not going to hit the gaps in the zones, because he's a veteran quarterback. He's going to know exactly where to put the ball. And if we try the same thing we tried against the Lions, and I routinely saw Patrick Peterson lining up with a 10-yard cushion for Amon-Ra St. Brown, you can't have stuff like that happening, because they're going to be able to take advantage of it extremely easily. That being said, I think that the Vikings offense is going to continue to put up points, continue to drive the ball successfully for most of the game. They usually tend to shut down in one quarter or not, usually the third. if this Vikings team is going to be playing like it has been all year, I think they're going to be able to put up points against a middle of the road, definitely above average, I want to say, Colts defense. They've got some good players on that team, so we can't overlook them and look past them. Having 2 losses back-to-back would not be a good sign for the team. So they got to take this game seriously and, put up points, play some better defense. The team's, been winning close games. So even if you can just minimize the bleeding and, try and pull off something in the fourth, just get a win, any means necessary, keep the momentum going, hope the Lions lose and secure the division. We'll feel a lot better at the end of the day if that's how it goes down.
Yeah, definitely, like you said, I think it's important to get a win here and try and lock up that division once and for all. Give us a score for this game. What do you think you guys will come out against the Colts?
I'd probably say something like 24-17, win by a score.
Pete, and then Blake, give me a score prediction for this.
Yeah, bro, I'll go something. I'm gonna go something a little bit lower scoring, maybe something like 21-17. I also think it'll be a fairly close game. They just need a win. I mean, they cannot drop another one. They already have a negative 1 point differential for a 10-3 team, so they really need to go out there and prove that they are a 10-11 win team. So,
Blake.
If I had to put a score to it, I do think Vikings going to come out with this victory. I would have this score around the 27-17 range. I'm just hoping Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson keeps on doing what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Vikings win this game too. I think they win 24-17. I think Michael Pittman has a decent game. I think the Vikings pass defense plays better, but I still think they give a little bit up through the air. Jonathan Taylor, I think, has a decent little game as well, but ultimately I think the Vikings do their job and come out with the win. Another NFC team is your Cowboys, Pete. They're playing against a pretty good Jaguars team that's been playing a lot better recently. How do you guys slow down Trevor Lawrence, who's really been finding his groove and stepping up lately? And, do you think T.Y. Hilton has any kind of an impact on that offense? And what do you guys need to do to come out with the win?
Well, compared to the last couple of teams that we've played, their rushing attack isn't as scary as a few teams that we've gone against recently. So I know Trevor Lawrence can run, but really just need to go out there and play sound football, bro. We need to go out there. Maybe we need to score on the first drive again like we did last time, or get a stop if we get the ball first. Kind of set the momentum early because, if you know Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence in that defense, they don't like to get put down after a game that they just had.
Yeah.
So, and with the addition of T.Y. Hilton, he's healthy. They said he can get upwards of 25 to 35 snaps this week. So I expect it to be try to get Dak in the groove. I think Dak might throw the ball like 35, 40 times. We'll see where it goes. We'll see what happens with it. But, my prediction, I think it's going to be a pretty close game. I love Zay Jones. Christian Kirk's done good. Evan Ingram has been on fire the past 2 games.
Yeah.
And I love to see Trevor Lawrence ball. I love Trevor Lawrence coming out of college. So I'd say probably about a 28-24 Cowboys. I think it's just going to be a pretty even game again. Because like you said, the Jaguars have been playing pretty damn good football.
Yeah. Personally, I think it's going to be a shootout. I think the Jaguars are playing good. Obviously, like you said, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, that offense is really starting to blossom and show a lot of potential. And I think the Cowboys do need another win, and I think they need to continue scoring like they have been for the most part. So I think I'll take the Cowboys.
And I wouldn't.
I'll say Cowboys 33-27.
And I wouldn't put it past T.Y. Hilton to be the leading receiver this week, bro, because our receivers, for some reason, bro, Michael Gallup doesn't trust his knee. He's not cutting the way he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
He's starting to get a little bit better at it, so hopefully come the playoffs, he's a little more confident. I've said it multiple times on here. Our receivers just don't create separation. They don't read the zone defenses. They don't sit in the zones. They always let somebody be on top of them. So T.Y. Hilton, that's what he's best at. He's quick, he's fast. He's either gonna stretch the field or he's gonna get in that zone defense for somebody that can drop it off to or throw it into a fairly easy throw, get it to him. So, like I said, I wouldn't put it past T.Y. Hilton to be our leading receiver Sunday.
Yeah, T.Y. Hilton, I think, is a receiver a lot of people like and who's been consistent throughout the years. Like you said, he's good at stretching the field, which is something you guys have needed. Tony, give us your score prediction, and then Blake.
I'd probably take this one, Cowboys 28, Jaguars 24. Still a pretty close game. You see some offense maybe later in the game from the Jags, but I think the Cowboys should be able to pull this off pretty fairly easily.
I'm actually a little bit of the opposite. I see this as a trap game, I guess you could kind of say, for the Cowboys. The way Cowboys defense looks and how hot the Jacksonville Jaguars offense is, I do agree with Steve, this being a shootout. But I do have the Jaguars on top in this one, 31-28. Just because of how Trevor Lawrence, I don't think the pass rush is going to get to Trevor Lawrence. He gets the ball off quick, and I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have like a 3-4 touchdown game.
I like it.
Okay.
We needed an upset pick because I feel like we haven't really had like a crazy one in the last couple weeks.
That's what I'm here for.
Cowboys are just notorious for playing to their opponent's level, bro. I mean, they can't get away from it, especially these past couple games.
Yeah, definitely been a lot closer.
Going into that fourth quarter, it was a close game. And if you look back at the stats, I seen an article today. It is like clockwork when it comes to Mike McCarthy and keeping the games close until the fourth quarter. So,
yeah, it'll be a fun game. It'll be an interesting game. Is the game in Dallas or is it in Jacksonville?
It's in Jacksonville, which is honestly better, bro. We're not. I mean, I understand where you get that home field, but bro, I mean, we don't do what we should at home. So
yeah. That being said, the Raiders are at home this weekend, and they're facing Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots at Allegiant Stadium. Mathematically, the Raiders still aren't eliminated from the playoffs. But if they lose here and then the Jets or the Dolphins win a game, then I believe they're eliminated. So they need a win this weekend. And Josh McDaniels obviously faces his former mentor in Bill Belichick. And it is a game that the Patriots need also. They came off that win against the Cardinals on Monday night. They have somewhat of a short week, and we were coming off a longer week because we played on Thursday night. And they're in the playoff picture, so it's a game that they're obviously going to be looking to win. And we have Mac Jones and Derek Carr. Derek Carr hasn't played well in, I believe, it's 3 games that he's played against Bill Belichick, and he hasn't played well against them in really either one of those 3 games. So it's kind of a scary matchup because Bill Belichick brings that defense, but I think the Raiders learn a lot from the Rams loss. They play a lot better at home. I think we get back to feeding Devontae Adams, get back to feeding Josh Jacobs. Hopefully he can play because he's still injured, still dealing with his finger and his wrist. But what do you guys think of Josh McDaniels facing Bill Belichick? And do you think the Raiders can bounce back with another win here?
I think you got it, Blake.
Yeah, I think the Raiders are going to bounce back for sure. I think this is going to be an ugly game, though. It's an inconsistent offense with heavy on Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs. and it's a Bill Belichick defense that succeeds at taking your best weapon away. So it's good. And then also you have the Patriots offense, which can't score really to save their life with Mac Jones in there. This is going to be an ugly game to watch. Honestly, it's going to be a gross, low-scoring game. I have this at like 17-14, but I do have the Raiders on top.
Pete?
Yeah, what I was gonna say is like you said, will it be a bounce back? And I have y'all winning, but as a bounce back, as in like y'all gonna come out there and blow them out. I don't think that's like Blake said, I don't think that's gonna happen. But if you mean bounce back as in a win after giving up that type of lead, yeah, I think y'all do come out there and win. But like Blake, that pass rush is good. Bill Belichick is good at taking away the number one. So it's really gonna fall on Derek Carr, see what he can do. I don't know that they'll be able to take away Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs. I think one of them will have a big game. One of them will kind of have, a mid game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have y'all winning probably. I'm going to go kind of the same score as the Vikings, probably 21-17.
Tony?
I don't think it's going to be that close of a game. I think that the Raiders are going to win this one by multiple scores. I think it's going to be one of those games where our narrative gets broken, not upheld. I think you're going to see multiple touchdown passes from Derek Carr and easily a 100-yard game from Josh Jacobs. I just think that the Raiders want to win this game more than the Patriots do, and that's what the ultimate difference is going to be. This Raiders team is an emotionally driven team. I think when they're down on themselves, they're really down, they get in their heads. The players aren't performing as well as they should. The coaching isn't as good as it should because of just the emotional gravity of this situation. And then when they're up, when they're riding highs, when they're trying to prove themselves, they play like an elite football team. There's no middle ground for this team. And the Patriots are a middle ground kind of team. And that's why I think that the Raiders are going to win this game pretty handily. I'd probably say 28-10.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a big take. Even as the Raider fan, I don't think it's going to be like that. If I remember correctly from when I was looking at the stats this morning, I believe the Patriots have the highest turnovers, have created the most turnovers for defense this season. And I don't think there's a surprise to that. They're obviously a really good team. Mac Jones has been playing better ever since he got his job back from Bailey Zappi. And I think it's important to mention that Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow could possibly make their comeback this weekend as well. Tony, I'm with you in the sense that I do think the Raiders kind of bounce back. I think Derek Carr, obviously after hearing everything from that extremely terrible throw he had right before halftime, and a lot of people were talking shit about him, obviously. But I don't think the loss was as big as a lot of people were trying to make it out to be. So I do think the Raiders bounce back. I think the game's a lot closer, though, and I have the Raiders winning 27-20. And I agree that I think Devontae Adams, again, isn't stopped. I think Josh Jacobs has over 100 yards. I do think the Patriots create a turnover or two, a fumble and a pick probably. But I think the Raiders do as well. I think the Raiders continue playing some pretty good defensive football overall within the last 4 weeks. And, they probably create a couple turnovers as well from Mac Jones. Blake, you guys are playing another divisional game against the Browns. Deshaun Watson's been kind of rusty. He hasn't really been looking like fully guaranteed, quarterback. But you guys are dealing with your own injuries at the quarterback position. So what do you guys need to do to win this game? Do you focus on your run game again, as you did with J.K. Dobbins, who gave you guys that spark? And how do you hold off a Browns team that plays you guys well, and Cincinnati, who are breathing right down your neck also?
So this game, as far as going with our quarterback situation. I have hope that Tyler Huntley is going to be able to play in this game after his concussion. He practiced today, but he's still not out of concussion protocol. So I do have hope that he will play. If not, we're stuck with Anthony Brown and Brett Hundley as our quarterbacks. This game is definitely going to come down to running game, though, in time of possession. If you look at both teams, they're both top 5 in running attack. They're both second and third, respectively, for time of possession. It's just going to be it's honestly going to be a slugfest. Who can stop the run more and who successfully runs and is better in the red zone. That's what it's going to come down to. I do have this being another low-scoring game, another ugly game by the Ravens, but I have them winning it, going 7-1 and in the last 8 games. And it would be, I'm going to say it's going to probably be a 18-14 game.
Wow. Yeah. These divisional games are always kind of hard to predict because they're always close. There's always some kind of weird play that ends up happening. I agree that it's going to be a close game. It will be somewhat of an ugly game, but like you said, very run heavy, very defense heavy. I think the Ravens win this game as well in a close game also, and just like last week. But I do think it's still low scoring. I think, let's say the Ravens 17-13. Tony?
I think it's going to be a close game too. I think it's going to be a fairly low scoring, but not as low scoring as you guys think. I, however, think that this could potentially be the Deshaun Watson back game. And I think that given the right circumstances, he could lead a potential fourth quarter comeback against the Ravens. And that's what I'm going to roll with. I'm going to roll with the Deshaun Watson back game. And I'm going to take him and the Browns winning 21-17.
I like it.
Damn, Tony. I was going to have, as long as Lamar's not out there, which doesn't look like it, I got the Browns winning 24-17.
No faith. We all a bunch of haters.
I am going to change my score a little bit.
Fuck you, you're a Jags fan.
Hey, I fuck with the Jags. Trevor Lawrence is a shit, bro.
I fuck with Deshaun Watson, baby. Hey, I said Bake was going to cook last week. Deshaun cooking this week.
Against the number 2 defense in the league?
I don't give a fuck who it's against. It could be against the Niners. That nigga cooking.
All right. We'll see. I'm calling it right now. Marcus Peters, 2 interceptions.
Hey,
Marcus Peters is back in.
There'll definitely be some interceptions, I think, but it'll be fun to come back next week and see who was right. Because if Deshaun shits the brick and loses, Blake's gonna talk his shit and not gonna let you guys live it.
Straight for Pete.
That being said, we're gonna take our last little break here before we jump into our power rankings, and we'll see you guys in a second.
Zeke up the middle, into the end zone for the touchdown.
Welcome back, everybody. We're getting ready to get into our power rankings for this week, for week 15. Like always, we'll start at the bottom and work our way up. At number 32, we have the Texans, who still only have 1 win on the season, although I think the Donkeys should be at 32 because they suck. But at 31, we have the Broncos, Panthers at 30, Rams at 29. Even though they had that win against the Raiders, they're just dealing with injuries all over the place. Colts at 28, Bears at 27, Cardinals at 26 after their loss on Monday night, and with Kyler getting hurt, who knows how they'll be with Colt McCoy. Saints at 25, Falcons 24, Browns 23, Raiders at 22 after that loss, Steelers at 21, Jags at 20, who like we've said, have been playing extremely well, so they're starting to climb up. Packers are at 19. Bucks are at 18. But is anyone else just so completely underwhelmed by what the Bucks have done this season?
I agree. I was going to say something about that. I think they should be lower. I think we'll kind of have them at this position because we all believe Tom Brady can flip it, but it just hasn't been there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just how poor the division is. If the division wasn't this bad, they wouldn't be that high. But I agree. It's highly disappointing, and it's probably just Tom Brady's name. And, I mean, they got destroyed by the 49ers this past weekend, so they're probably a little higher than they should be. But at 17, we have the Patriots. The Giants are at 16 after they got blown out by the Eagles. The Lions at 15, who's continue to climb, who we might have them a little bit low if we're just going based off the last 6-7 games. The Lions have been killing it, so I know NFL.com had them at number 10, I believe. So we'll see how they do this weekend. Excuse me. The Chargers are at 14 after their win. Seahawks at 13. We're starting to come down a little bit ever since that injury to Kenneth Walker, and their run game has kind of died. They're not playing as well. The Commanders are sitting there at number 12. They have a big game against the Giants on Sunday night this coming weekend. At number 11 are the Titans. And at number 10 are the Jets. So right before we dive into those top 10 teams, from 11 to, let's say, 17, we'll say the Titans, Commanders, Seahawks, Chargers, Lions, Giants, Patriots. Who are you guys more worried about? And who do you think can squeeze themselves into the top 10?
I think with the way that they're playing recently, bro, it's either the Lions or the Chargers. But for me personally, I'd have to put the Lions up there just because the way they fucking turned it around and how they've been playing the past 6 weeks. The offense has stayed hot, and the defense has really turned it around. So I'd go with the Lions.
Blake?
I would have to agree. Lions, and to be honest, I think Titans. I know Titans haven't been as effective throwing the ball since they got rid of A.J. Brown, but I think Derrick Henry still can wreck any game at any moment, and I think they could definitely be a top 10 team. Do I think they can try to push for top 5? No, but definitely bottom tier 10, top 10.
Tony?
Just to clarify something, when you said most worried about, were you also wanting us to mention teams we thought that could potentially start to lose and fall out of their spot?
Not yet. Or
Not yet.
If it's one of those teams, yeah. If it's one of those 11 to 17 teams, yeah, go ahead.
I'd probably say a team that I'd watch for their stock to start dropping really low is the New York Giants. I think they've lost a little bit of that early season magic. What were they, like 6-1 earlier this season? Now they are.
I'm proud to tell you,
they're out of the wild card spots. I'm pretty sure. I think now they've officially been knocked out of the playoffs.
I think they're still in because the Seahawks lost.
I think they're still in.
Had the Seahawks won, then the Giants would be
right.
out, and the Seahawks would be that last spot.
I think that the Giants are going to be the
they're
team
sitting
that
right
falls
at
out
the
of that
7th spot.
I'd say if there's a team the Lions are going to leapfrog, it's going to be the Giants. Simply because they don't have a reliable passing game. They really relied on their rushing game, but now that's starting to fizzle out off a string of some pretty lackluster performances by Saquon Barkley. The offense just hasn't been looking as good, and the defense may have been slightly overrated. They're still a pretty solid unit, but they're not winning them games anymore, and I think that just completely throws out their formula for winning. I know you guys both touched on the Lions. I would also say watch out for the Chargers in the AFC. I think that their hot streak could potentially be starting. And the Lions are in the middle and could potentially be closer to the end of their hot streak. It's a tall task for them to win out to get into the playoffs, or not to get into, but to get the division. I think the Chargers' road to getting in the playoffs is a lot more easy. And I think that, after this rather impressive win against the Dolphins, they could start to develop momentum that the Lions have had, while the Lions' momentum slowly starts to hit the brakes as we get closer to the postseason.
Yeah, the Lions and the Chargers are probably the two most enticing teams out of those 6-7 teams that we have there. At number 10 was the Jets, who I believe are a lot like the Giants. I think they're probably a year removed from being real contenders because they need a quarterback, maybe get a little healthier, get a couple other weapons. At number 9 we have the Dolphins, who came off a very disappointing loss against the Chargers. I think Tua kind of came back to earth, which was a concern that we all had. And now that it's coming down to crunch time, end of the season is starting to get colder, you're starting to face stiffer competition, you're starting to see that explosiveness kind of dwindle down. And they didn't play good against an injury-riddled Chargers defense. And a lot of people would have probably imagined that they would have had success against them, and they just didn't. So they're standing there at 9. I still think they're a top 10 team. They still have a lot of talent, but they're a team that's starting to not look as dangerous as a lot of people thought they might be. At number 8 is Blake's Ravens, who, again, like a lot of other teams, are dealing with a lot of injuries. But the one thing you can say about them is they're still finding ways to win. Their defense is finally stepping up and playing like a top 5 defense. And behind that run game where the running backs are starting to get healthy, you can only imagine that if this team is fully healthy by the time playoffs comes around, they're a team you really wouldn't want to face. Tony, 10 wins, but your Vikings sitting at number 7. Like we've discussed this episode, your pass defense, I think, leaves a lot to be desired. But there's still a lot of potential with you guys' offense. So I think you guys are in a good spot. They're at number 7. Before we get into these top 6 teams that I think are extremely dangerous and can all be considered Super Bowl contenders. At number 6 is a Bengals team that I projected to win the AFC North. Although I think the Ravens are extremely good, I think the Bengals are just a little bit more explosive, but that makes that game between them at the end of the season so much more exciting to see who wins that, much like the Cowboys and the Eagles have won. At number 5, the 49ers, I feel like everybody wants to find reasons why they shouldn't be higher, but regardless of what injuries they deal with or who they face, they've just been dominant as of late. And honestly, we have them at number 5, but they could be a little bit higher. What do you guys think about the 49ers or the Bengals?
I like the Bengals a little bit more just because of their quarterback. Like, Joe Burrow is a known commodity at quarterback. Purdy is still, he's had 2 impressive games, but that's still a real small sample size. I saw Joe Burrow take this Bengals team that was supposed to have gotten better over the offseason to a Super Bowl last year. So I just think that his potential as a quarterback is more scary than Purdy's is as a quarterback. And they've got weapons that are healthy right now. They've been able to stay relatively healthy. Early on in the season, they had some more injuries. Now they've been kind of coming together, getting healthier, getting better. 49ers are a little bit on the opposite end of that. They just lost Debo. They have 2 of their quarterbacks down right now, down to their 3rd string, who's been playing well. The defense is really good. So both teams are good, but I think I trust the Bengals a little bit more.
Yeah, Blake, at number 4, we have the Bills. And at 3, we have the Chiefs, rounding out the top 2 seeds in the AFC. what do you make of the Bills who, like you said, Josh Allen hasn't been playing lights out like a lot of people have expected him to this season. I mean, there was MVP talk. I believe he might have been my MVP choice. And although they're winning and they're playing well, he individually hasn't been playing as well. Do you think that has a certain effect into how good the Bills can be, or are we overlooking it a little bit? And then the Chiefs, like we said, it's the Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce show. Which of those two teams are you more scared of? And do you think, has a real shot to be that best team in the AFC?
I mean, as far as I'm more scared of is definitely the Bills. I do think the Chiefs are going to end up being the number one team in the AFC, but Patrick Mahomes is always going to be scary. Scariest player in the league probably to play against.
Yeah.
But as far as the Bills go, Bills just are stacked everywhere. They're stacked at receiver. They're getting their running game going. Josh Allen can beat you with his arm, his legs, and they're a top 5 defense. It's like you can't really – there's no fault. There's no real weakness to that team.
Yeah.
Drastic weakness that you can just beat them with. The Chiefs, on the other hand, you get a couple turnovers, you get a couple lucky stops on their offense, and you can definitely score on their defense. There's a blatant weakness on the Chiefs. So I definitely, as me, myself, I would be more scared of the Bills going into the playoffs than I would the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think the Bills, like we said, although Josh Allen hasn't been killing it like we all thought he would, the Bills are just the more complete team out of them and the Chiefs. Pete, your Cowboys are sitting strong at number 2, right behind your division lead Eagles, who have cemented their place there at number 1. How do you guys beat? I mean, it's a lot of anticipation, and you have to get past the Jags this weekend. But leading up to that Christmas Eve, or is it Christmas Eve or Christmas matchup?
Yeah,
Christmas Eve matchup against the Eagles. And if you guys win that, now you guys have a shot at the division. What do you guys need to do to overtake the Eagles at 1 and win that highly anticipated matchup on Christmas Eve?
They just need to go out there and play the way they can play, bro. I mean, it's going to be hard dealing with these injuries. And it feels like the Eagles haven't really had any injuries, and they've been good at all 3 phases of the game consistently all year. I thought they'd slow down, but it's looking like they're not going to slow down. So, I mean, we just need to get Tyron Smith back this week. They were thinking it might have been last week. It'll be this week, though. So we just got to go out there and play. We got to play consistent offense. We just got to score damn near every drive to try to keep up with them, because I think when it comes to the Cowboys and the Eagles, the way they always play each other, bro, I mean, I don't see it being a super defensive game. I see both teams going out there and just trying to prove a point. So I think both offenses will be able to move the ball. I mean, as of right now, I would have the Eagles beating us due to all of our injuries for sure and how we've been playing recently. So this game has a lot riding on it against the Jags to see how we come out and play. But in all honesty, I don't think we're going to catch the Eagles, because they have to drop a game. Even if we beat them, they have to drop another game against somebody. And I don't know how likely that's going to be, because we win the tiebreaker against the Vikings because we beat them. So say we all win out and the Eagles lose 2. That's the only way that we can get the number 1 seed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think Dak's interceptions create a little bit of concern for some people offensively, but there's no denying you guys are scoring the ball basically at will. One of the highest scoring offenses in the NFL. But the Eagles, like you said, are just an all-around complete team. They're getting special teams defense, running the ball, passing the ball, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Miles Sanders, that defense, obviously. So I think they found their home. I don't think they'll – if I'm making a prediction, I don't think they move from that number 1 spot. I think that the Eagles have pretty much have locked up that spot. That being said, unless there's anything you guys would like to bring up, that pretty much wraps up the power rankings for this episode. And yeah, anything you guys want to bring up for this coming week?
No, but this is the first weekend we get football on Saturday, so enjoy that
yes,
shit.
we have a triple header back to back to back on Saturday.
Yeah, we got 3.
Yeah, make sure you guys tune in on that.
Vikings play Saturday, and I think the Ravens play Saturday too, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we have
They
2
do.
of our teams playing
Yeah,
on
and then
Saturday.
I think the Dolphins and Bills are the last
Yeah.
game on Saturday night.
Yeah.
So yeah, things are starting to heat up. The playoff picture is starting to form itself a little bit more, and we're starting to really digest who the best teams in the NFL are right now. So I think from us, everybody here at the Prime Sports Podcast, we hope you guys enjoy this weekend, and we'll see you guys next week.